Episode 2 of Season 4 is called Infected. Because they're infected.
Right, very clever name.
Mm-hmm.
No idea what's going to go on in this episode.
So Tyrese and Karen are flirting. Well, Tyrese is flirting with Karen. Karen doesn't seem into it, but I guess they're essentially dating now.
Yeah, and he's like... they're in the library, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's like, you want to go back to your cell block or mine?
Mm-hmm.
She's like, no, we shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, so they never had sex, it's implied, which is kind of strange.
I mean, that kind of explains his rage later.
Yeah.
Because he never got to have sex with her.
Yeah. Yeah, so they never have sex before, spoiler, she dies. And then, so Tyrese tries to have sex with her, she doesn't want to. She she is like, okay, I'll see you later, and then goes off to
the bathroom.
Her room. But yeah, she goes, apparently they get all their water from the shower room, because she's like filling up a bucket with water there. Mm-hmm. And so then she gets a bucket, and as she's leaving, Patrick, who died of the flu.
And is now a walker.
The red-eye flu. Yeah, and he's a walker. He reanimates and starts following her without her realizing it.
Like, he's a stealth walker for sure.
Yeah, coming out of the showers, and then he's gonna go eat Karen, but then he hears some other guy coughing, and so then he's distracted by that and goes after this random guy in a different cell.
And so, like, they don't close their cells. Like, they just have, like, a sheet up. Mm-hmm. As like a door, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so the walker easily gets into his cell and goes directly for his throat and eats his throat instantly.
Yeah.
And which is just super convenient because like the guy doesn't get to yell or anything like that, so no one else is aware of what's going on. Yes. It's just very, very convenient.
So Rick and Carl are dumb. Herschel is possibly the dumbest. They're all dumb because... So the pigs were infected with this disease, the flu, and the walkers were infected with the flu, and at no point did Rick and Carl think to tell Herschel about this. Apparently Herschel's... just, I don't know, what has he been doing? Like, what's his job exactly? He was a vet, so you would think that taking care of their livestock would be a pretty obvious thing for him to do. But apparently, like, he doesn't care. He hasn't, been asking about the pigs or anything.
Also, he was the one that was like, Rick, you need to become a pig farmer.
Yeah.
But, like, he's just like, oh, you've done it? Okay, I'm done.
Yeah. Well, and just, like, before the infection, what was he doing? Other than just, limping around and telling people what to do. Like, what was his, like, I just don't think I feel like he's been not using his knowledge for anything particularly useful up until the infection started spreading, and he should have known about this pig disease.
Mm-hmm. So they have another doctor here in their camp that I guess presumably this doctor came from Woodbury.
Yeah.
And they call him Dr. S.
Because they don't want to bother pronouncing his real name.
Right.
Because I don't think that they never say.
I don't think they do either.
But on the wiki, it's a rather long Indian name. So I think they just don't want to try to pronounce it all that often. Apparently that's, like, it was the actor's name was, like, a shortened version of this character's name, which is a really strange... I find this character strange. It would have made much more sense if this was Dr. Stevens, the doctor in Woodbury in the beginning of season 3, who we see once, perhaps twice.
Right.
So in the comics and books, this was an old man named Dr. Stevens, who is a substantial character.
Mm-hmm. Who's essentially Milton.
Yeah, except he was a medical doctor, but yeah.
Right. Just Milton is like his right-hand guy. Dr. Stevens was kind of like...
Kind of, yeah. He was important, but he
Yeah.
also hated the governor. And ended up betraying. I mean, Milton
You're
betrayed him
right,
too,
yeah.
but for different reasons. And so, okay, but in the TV show, we see Dr. Stevens once or twice, and she's an old black woman, okay? Which is different than the comics and the books. So, I don't know why they bothered introducing that character, because they never do anything with her, and then she just disappears.
Right.
And according to the internet, let's see, it's like the producers of the show said that everyone in Woodbury who we don't see, or like all of like the characters we were introduced to, all the characters we were introduced to in Woodbury who we don't see later are dead. Like, they were killed by the governor.
But that's dumb that they took their doctor out.
Well, it doesn't make sense. And, okay, so if they had just... They could have just said, no, this is Dr. Stevens should have just been here.
Yeah.
Like, she should have just been at the prison. Mm-hmm. I just find the introduction of this character, Dr. S, kind of strange. It's it's like, why? That just doesn't make sense. Like, you could have just used the existing character or not introduced this random new guy for no reason.
Because that also means that at Woodbury, they had a Dr. Stevens and a Dr. S, but, like, we never, like, they never mentioned Dr. S. It was just Dr. Stevens.
Yeah. Yeah, so... I think that would have made a lot more sense. And I question why they even introduced... Why did they introduce Dr. Stevens?
To just change it to Dr.
Like, what did they... I mean, but... but like, in season 3, why did they just... Why did she just disappear?
I don't know.
Like, why did they even introduce a medical doctor and then just have her disappear like that? That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
So... okay, so then Lizzie and Miko's dad was bitten during because so there was a outbreak of walkers spawning forth from Patrick.
Right.
In the prison. They're running around. A lot of people get bitten. Mm-hmm. So then several people are dead. And Ryan, who is Lizzie and Miko's father, is bitten. And he's like asking Carol to take care of Lizzie and Mika as if they were her own children after he dies. And that's bad. I mean, obviously at this point, there's not as much of a pattern, but Carol's surrogate children, and her actual child, all die. She should not get anywhere near any children ever because they're just gonna die.
Yeah.
They're just gonna be killed, like, in some violent fashion. There's no... It's a bad idea.
Yeah. And also, so they're wondering, like, how did this happen? How did, like, they know that Patrick turned, but they're like, how did he turn? And Rick never told anyone that he was seeing, like, the walkers with, like, the bleeding eyes. He never told anyone about that disease. And if he'd had of, then maybe they would have, like, locked their cells at night, or even just closed them. I just, like... He could have saved so many people by being like, hey guys, there's something weird going on with the walkers. Maybe we should keep an eye out for this.
Yes.
Because, like, as soon as he tells Herschel and Dr. S, they're like, oh yeah, this is pretty common with farm animals and pigs in particular, and yada, yada, yada. And it's like, oh, well, great. We maybe should have known that. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Oh, and during the Walker outbreak and chaos earlier, Michonne somehow, like, manages 2 walkers go after her and right outside the gate.
Right, she's like coming back.
She flops over, and one of them falls over, gets impaled on the spikes by the gate, and she like, so then Maggie and Carl go out to save her, and Maggie shoots the walker impaled on the spikes, which serves no purpose because it's completely neutralized and there's no harm that could come from it. And that might attract more walkers.
Yeah, so it's just dumb for her to do that.
And so then, the walkers that have been attracted by, spoiler, Lizzie is the older girl.
Yes.
Who, like, so she's been feeding them rats. Just the heads, though, for some reason. Just the heads. Just the heads. Which doesn't make sense.
No. Well, Lizzie's crazy.
Right, but that still doesn't explain it. And so then feeding them just the heads, and then they've all been swarming at the fence in one particular place, and they really should be spreading out once she leaves. Right. But so then the walkers start tearing down the gate. Or not the gate, the fence. And then the characters stupidly try to hold it up as they're coming through. And
that was really stupid.
Yeah. And so then
Rick's like,
after that, Rick is like, okay, so we gotta lure him away. And so then he gets the piglets and drives him and Daryl. Daryl's driving him away from the fence in a truck. Rick is in the back with the piglets. And so then he sort of gets the walkers' attention and then starts feeding them piglets one by one in a trail. He starts cutting their arteries and then leaving them there, and then the walkers go after them. And then he's like leading them away, and it's kind of wasteful because it doesn't, like, they don't need to. The whole piglet thing might not be necessary because you could just sort of like lead them away. You like hold a piglet up and just lure them away like that.
Yeah, or just use one, not all of them.
Yeah, and so then Rick is slicing the piglets one by one, and then he's getting blood all over himself, and he's getting traumatized by this. And then later, so then they successfully lead most of the walkers away from the fence. And it doesn't seem like this should last that long. Like, the walkers should just sort of finish with the piglets and then
turn back around.
Yeah. Because they ran out of piglets pretty quickly. And then Rick later is burning his shirt and the pig pen for no reason other than it's symbolic. So he's burning the pig pen, burning his shirt. Doesn't serve any purpose.
Just wasting their fuel.
Yeah.
Maybe it was for the ratings to see Rick shirtless.
Maybe. And then, at one point, Lizzie and Mika are outside in the yard, and Carol's like, oh, I'm sorry I had to kill your dad, etc., etc. And so then, but then Lizzie is actually upset that earlier someone killed one of the walkers that they'd been naming, Nick.
Yeah.
They'd been naming these walkers, and then she's upset that they killed him, and like Carol's like, oh, you're weak and disgusting, Lizzie. And then Mika's like, no, or after Lizzie runs away, Mika's like, no, Carol, she's just insane, you see. And yeah, and then and so they shouldn't just be running around loose when the fences are coming down.
Well, and like all those walkers were just inside. Like someone should definitely be looking after them, just like previously in like season 2 when Carl was just constantly kind of doing his own thing. And it's like, oh, does anyone know where Carl is? Nope, fantastic.
Yeah.
So earlier, after like all the walkers, they were like, oh, there's a sickness, we need to make sure that like the sick people are staying away because it's a super easily spreadable disease. And Karen was coughing, so they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna quarantine Karen. And David, another character, right? David, he was also showing signs, so they quarantined him. So at the end, Tyrese is like, I'm going to go see my girlfriend Karen, and is taking her flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not in the cell that they put her in, and there's like this blood trail that's going to an outside door. So he follows the blood trail, and then he finds their two bodies burned. So,
yes.
like, obviously dead and burned. I don't know why they have an obsession with burning.
Mm-hmm.
Or why they're using the fuel for burning that also. But I think that's how the episode ends.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then episode 3 is isolation, and it kind of picks up in the same place.
Mm-hmm. And so Tyrese is like, yep, somebody murdered these two, and I wanted to have sex with Karen so bad. I figured that, with her being sick, like, it'd be easier. I brought these flowers, yeah. Maybe she'd be unconscious, who knows.
And he's telling Rick, like, you better find out who did it and bring him to me.
Yeah.
And all of his sexual frustration, he attacks Rick.
Yeah.
And Rick's traumatized brain from killing the piglets, he just attacks Tyrese back and starts punching the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And so Carol and Daryl are also in the courtyard with the burned bodies, witnessing all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I guess, like, they're like, oh, we have to quarantine all the people that are sick. We're going to put them in cell block A. And anyone that starts showing signs, they're putting them over there. And Dr. Stevens is going in and helping them, and he's already sick. And they're putting, like, the people who are more susceptible, so, like, the children and the elderly in the office block.
Mm-hmm.
And Judith and Beth go into, like, their own, like, isolate, like, what is not isolation?
What? Quarantine?
Yeah, but they're in, like, one of the, they don't have, like, a whole block to themselves. They're in one of the, why am I forgetting the name of it? When the prisoner's really, really bad and has, like, their own individual room where they can't, like, see or talk to anyone else.
The hole.
The hole, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they go into...
That's isolation.
That's, okay, so they go into their own, like, isolation room. And Lizzie goes to Carol and is like, I don't feel so well. And Carol has, like, a mask on, and she's like, oh, you have to go into cell block A then. And Lizzie asks her if she will tuck her in, and Carol doesn't want to get sick, so she says no, and she tells her to go to Glenn, and Glenn will help her because Glenn is sick. But she gives her a hug before she goes in there, and that's just stupid. Like, do you not want to get sick, or do you want to hug her? And, like, like, if you were that concerned about getting sick, then you wouldn't hug her, or you would go tuck her in. Like, you can't have it both ways, Carol.
Yeah. Carol's just cold-hearted and callous, and
she is.
I don't like her at this point in the series. I think she's very I don't know. I think they don't do a great job of, like, because now she's suddenly trying to make up for being so weak this entire time by acting like she's so hard, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't really work that well.
And she just thinks that she knows better than anybody.
Yeah.
And she's going to make decisions on her own.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like teaching the kids how to fight. Like, she didn't ask their parents or anything. She just decided this is what they need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. So Herschel's like, okay, I can go out into the woods and find some elderberries to treat the people who are sick. And he's like, no, I gotta go alone. And Carl's like, no, I gotta go with you, Herschel. And Herschel's like, whatever, fine, I guess you'll have to come with me. And so then they go out into the woods, and Herschel's just, he's like, oh, it's so peaceful, Carl. Isn't this wonderful, Carl? Ooh, like, this feels so safe. I love
nature, Carl.
Yeah. Carl's like, okay, whatever, old man. And then there's one walker shambling around, and then the second walker in a bear trap. And Carl wants to shoot it, and Herschel's like, no, it's okay, we'll just walk away slowly. And they do, and then
Carl's
he's
like,
just
okay,
whatever.
And I just, I take issue with that because earlier in season 2, when Carl came face to face with that walker that was caught in the swamp, and then he left it, and then that was the walker that ate Dale later. He's like, it's all my fault, I should have killed him, and he always tells Rick, like, you need to take action, you should have killed the governor, like, he's like all about like the taking action, but then all of a sudden Herschel's like, no, it's okay, and Carl's like, oh, you're right, I don't need to kill it. Like, what if this walker somehow got out of the animal trap and somehow got a hold of someone at the prison, like, and hurt them or killed them? Like, Carl would that would ruin him. He should have killed it. There's no reason to not kill it.
Yeah. And so, not a lot happens in this episode. It's kind of a filler episode. And then, so at one point, Herschel says, okay, so there's this animal hospital, right? Because we need antibiotics to treat the flu. So, there's an animal hospital I know of that may not have been looted for supplies. And so then Daryl, Bob, and Tyrese.
Michonne.
Wasn't Bob with them? Where's Bob?
Bob was with them. Oh, Maggie.
Was it Maggie?
I'm pretty sure it's Maggie.
Wait, so how many? Were there 4 of them?
There were 4 of them.
Okay. Okay, anyway, so they're going to this animal hospital to try to look for antibiotics.
It's 50 miles away.
And at one point, they just run into a huge herd of walkers blocking the road.
Apparently, it's because...
Oh, well, because they got okay, so their radio... Yeah, you're right. The radio started picking up a broadcast from Terminus saying, come here, everybody. There's plenty of food.
Survive. Sanctuary for all.
Yeah. And so then, okay, so who was driving at this point?
Daryl.
Okay, so who was in the passenger seat?
Maggie, I believe.
Okay, because it's like everybody in the car, just takes their eyes off the road all at once, and then somehow they just run into some walkers who are right there, right in front of them, and they just plow into them, because everybody simultaneously is just like, whoa, the radio.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, what, okay, I feel like you should have seen this.
Yeah.
But,
because it's not like they just suddenly appeared, unless they're super stealth walkers.
Yeah. What you mean, where they cloak themselves in invisibility?
Yes.
They
transport,
have the predators. Oh, okay. You mean they just drop in from the sky?
Yes, yeah. They weren't there and then they were there.
Yeah. So then they get stuck. They try to reverse, but the wheels just start spraying walkers everywhere and they're completely stuck. And so then they all try to burst out of the car to escape. And Tyrese is just so angry about not getting to have sex with Karen. He's just so filled with sexual frustration
in the car
that he's just like, I don't even care anymore.
Right, he's like, just eat me. I don't give 2 shits. She didn't eat me, so...
Yeah, you're right, though.
And the rest of them are like, come on, dude. Trying to get his attention because they're on the other side of the walkers that are distracted by Tyrese in the car. And finally, he snaps out of it. Yeah. And he's, trying to get through the walkers to them, and they're just surrounding him, and he's like, go without me.
And he's just punching them and wrestling with them. And so then it's like, okay, he should have died. Shortly after, the remainder of the group are running through the woods, we see that he didn't die, and he's completely unharmed. Yeah. Which does not make any sense, because they would have been biting at him. He was completely surrounded, and there were maybe,
no armor.
Or maybe, between 7 and 10 of them, in touching him, in contact, in a circle around him. And... okay, how did he stop them from biting his back?
It doesn't make
what
any
I mean?
sense.
Okay, so he's strong. It should, he can't just, that's just silly. It was just to, create a dramatic moment to say, oh no, he's been, he's dead.
Just kidding, he's alive.
Right. Oh, no, he's fine. And I guess no longer suicidal, at least not completely, because, now he's, he fought his way out. Yeah, and so then Tyrese is okay, which is very improbable. He wasn't bitten or anything.
The group gets back to the prison.
Right, and so they just can't go to the animal hospital anymore because there's a huge herd in between them. And so they just give up on that. Yeah, they get back to the prison.
And, like, Herschel's trying to take in some elderberry tea.
Yeah.
And Maggie's like, there's sick people in there. And it's like, well, yeah, he knows that. We know that.
He's like, Maggie, I shouldn't have dropped you on the head as a baby so many times. I think it might have affected you negatively.
And Rick agrees with Maggie that Herschel should not go in there, but he's like, we could die anytime.
Yeah.
We are all risking our lives all the time. I guess I'm kind of doing a Rick accent.
That's closer. But yeah, Herschel's is a strange accent.
Yeah. And so Herschel goes in and he's giving the giving the elderberry tea to Dr. S.
Right.
And Dr. S coughs blood.
And he's like, sorry, dude. And I guess I shouldn't have done that right in your face.
And Herschel was wearing a bandana over his nose and mouth, but, like, the blood got in his eyes, so he was like, well, fuck it. And just, like, takes off the bandana. And he's like, I'm probably sick too now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember at some point Beth was like, Beth, the heartless, cold bitch that she's become, she's like, we can't cry, Maggie. We all have a job. Your job isn't to cry, Maggie. Stop crying. Stop being a little bitch, Maggie. I gotta take care of Judith.
Oh, that's right.
Glenn's sick. Dad's in cell block A. Don't cry. Like, she's just super cold and, yeah.
And so she's taking care of Judith. That's right.
Yeah,
okay.
so she's in, like, the isolation. Like, she's in the hole. It's a much better hole than in Oz.
Yeah. Wait, I think they have... Let's see. I thought they had the children and old people in the office block.
They do, but they put Beth with Judith in, like, their own, like, separate room.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so let's see. Does anything... Oh, right. Okay, so then there's been this minor subplot where apparently the hose that's getting them water, the pump is just sucking up mud. And so then Carol and Rick at one point are saying, okay, we gotta go fix it.
We'll do it tomorrow.
Which I don't... Okay, it's like... It's right there. It's like 50 feet outside the fence that it just connects to that little stream. That's where they're getting their water. So, like, I don't know. Why not just do it? Like, you should just... I mean... It doesn't really seem like it's worth waiting. Like, just do it.
Well, and because they were even like, oh, we'll do it tomorrow, and that was before...
Couldn't Herschel have just done it while going out to get berries?
Oh, that's really
Or, you know what I mean? Like, apparently him and Carl are fine just going...
Yeah.
Like, it's not like they're concerned
but they,
about
like,
anything.
they decided to do that before they even knew about, like, the Walker outbreak. So, like, there was no reason... Like, if it was after and they were like, we're just dealing with too much today, let's do it tomorrow. Like, that's one thing, but... At that point, when they said that, nothing was going on. Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's see. And then at one point, Carol decides she's just going to do it herself while Rick is gone. And...
Because she thinks that she can make all the decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, so then she goes out there, and then she gets ambushed by walkers. And then Rick...
has to go out and save her.
What was he doing?
Well, okay, so Rick was trying to figure out who killed Karen and David, and so he went back to their block that they were in, to their cells, and he, like, follows the blood trace, and there's a handprint of blood on like the door frame, and he, like, compares his hand to it and notices his hand is so much bigger.
I didn't do it.
So, right. So there's three options.
That rules out some people.
3 options. It's a woman who has smaller hands than Rick. Or I guess it's really anyone that has smaller hands than Rick, but he surmises it's a woman. It's a child. Or
a dwarf.
Or a dwarf.
Yeah.
Lots of dwarves in Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after he, like, saves Carol, they get back into the cell block, or not the cell block, into the yard.
Yeah.
He's like, is there anything you wouldn't do for this group? And she's like, no. And he's like, did you kill Karen and David?
She's like, oh, yeah. No, she's like, yes.
You know I did, Daddy. So, and I think that's where the episode ends. Like, she just confessed that she killed them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, okay.
Not a whole lot happens in these 2 episodes.
No, they're filler.
Yeah.
They were just done because they don't cost very much to film.
Yeah.
Yeah.